Good morning. I'm Pastor Carol Parmenter Dyer, and I bring you greetings from Mount Calvary Lutheran Church in Cyprus. I'm really excited to be a part of this Bread of Life preaching series with our partner congregations. Grace and peace to you who follow Jesus, the one who gave his life that we may live, the one in whom we live and move and have our being. Amen. I'm sure you've heard the saying, you are what you eat. I've been meditating on this as it relates to Holy Communion, the Great Thanksgiving, and Jesus as the food that sustains and nourishes us. I have also been meditating on my life as a mother and what it means to be someone who gives birth and then sustains that new life with her body. It is a miracle, and it is a sacred, life-changing event, irreversible and humbling in the deepest sense of the word. Being a mother to a newborn human can be exhausting and challenging, and sometimes results in serious issues like postpartum depression. And I believe that almost all of the time, the exhaustion and depression arise out of a lack of connection to the Holy One. And that comes primarily through community, family, friends, and our Mother Earth. Of course, sometimes depression is purely chemical, and thankfully we live at a time when there is medical help for that. But as science is finally learning, we need to be held and mirrored and loved in beloved community, all of us. Isolation is soul-crushing and deadly. In the Mayan culture, the mother and baby stay in the house for at least 7 days, and the mother's activities remain limited until she receives a special massage on day 20. Malaysian women are forbidden from cooking and cleaning for 40 days. The 40-day period is also observed in India, Korea, Palestine, and Mexico, and it's even extended to 100 days in some countries, if possible. In rural England, in years past, women in the community were given a private worship service in the parish church 6 weeks after giving birth. And this was a marker of their re-entry into the community after a period of seclusion. Even in my Lutheran community in the Central Valley of California, they stepped up when my son Aiden was born. Women from the church would show up to hold Aiden so I could sleep or shower, and they would silently do the dishes and laundry and clean the house. It was lovely, and I felt their support and love. And almost always, the grandmothers in the communities would come and give support and relief and advice, and grandfathers would come and help around the house and give advice to their sons and sons-in-law. What would we do without beloved community? We find God as mother in our holy scriptures and in our Christian history. In the book of Isaiah, God is described as a woman in childbirth. I will cry out like a woman in labor. I will gasp and pant. And also, can a woman forget her nursing child or show no compassion for the child of her womb? Even these may forget, yet I will not forget you. In the Psalms we read, out of my womb before the morning star I bore you, and for it was you who formed my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Jesus weeps over Jerusalem in the Gospels, referring to himself as a mother hen who longs to gather her unwilling chicks under her wings. In the 4th century, St. Augustine wrote, when all is well with me, what am I but an infant suckling your milk and feeding on you? Also in the 4th century, St. Ephrem of Syria writes, God has given suck, life to the universe. And St. Teresa of Avila exclaims in the 16th century, O life, my life, sustenance that sustains me. For from those divine breasts, where it seems God is always sustaining the soul, there flows streams of milk, bringing comfort to all people. And what about the saying, you are what you eat? For me, this goes along with everything Jesus has been teaching us and wanting us to know. We become what we receive. Jesus said, I am the bread of life. The person who aligns with me hungers no more and thirsts no more, ever. I am the bread of life. Here is bread that truly comes down from heaven. Anyone eating this bread will not die. The bread that I present to the world so that it can eat and live is myself, this flesh and blood self. God feeds and nourishes us if we are open and if we open our hearts to receive this gift of life. Each week, we are fed and nourished during Holy Communion, or the Eucharist, which in Greek means thanksgiving. To commune is to share in common, to connect, to receive and to give. This is the part of worship that I love the most and that has healed and changed my life the most. The act of being fed and nourished by Christ's own body, week after week in beloved community, sustains and transforms us and allows us to go out into the world and be Christ for our neighbors, our families, and even our enemies. You are what you eat. Christ's own body, bled and blessed and broken. Another way we are fed and transformed is by welcoming into our hearts, minds, and bodies all the ways the Holy One is present in our world. Christ is present in the visible and the invisible, the material and the spiritual, and in all loving relationships. One way to be fed and nourished is to commune with nature and our physical landscapes. When you go outside, do you connect with the world around you? Sometimes I must admit I am so focused on getting to work or to my mother's house or an appointment that I'm running late for, I fail to notice the landscape that is there, alive and welcoming me. There are trees, and there is the sky. There are roads with other people. There are neighborhood cats who want to greet me, and there are dogs getting walks that sometimes want to come and say hello. In the Celtic imagination, landscape isn't just matter, but it's alive. And this makes sense because we know how a change of scenery can change how we are feeling and thinking. Sitting beside the ocean or a river or a lake can calm your mind and call you into a peaceful silence. Even in the city, the sun rises to greet each day, and twilight comes to ease the passage into night. And even within us, we can remember or imagine the kind of landscape that sustains and renews us. That is why guided meditation is so effective. Calling something beautiful to mind and dwelling there in our imagination and in our prayer can change our chemistry and calm our nervous system. Beauty is one of God's ways of feeding and nourishing our spirits, our bodies, and our minds. People who survive atrocities like the Holocaust, or people who work on the front lines of war, witnessing horrors that no one should witness or endure, are able to sustain their work and continue to live because they carry within themselves a sense of beauty that knows the horizon that love is calling them to in some way. The 17th century philosopher Blaise Pascal wrote that one should always keep something beautiful in one's mind. Then when things are difficult, you can return to that image and it will give you the strength to endure great hardship and despair, and it will reconnect you with Christ. Meister Eckhart, the 14th century German mystic, wrote, "There's a place in you, there's a place in the soul that neither time nor space nor no created thing can touch." There's a place in the soul that neither time nor space nor no created thing can touch, which means you are made of more than the things that have happened to you. And there's a place in you where you've never been wounded, where there is a sureness and confidence and peace that can never be taken away from you. And that is what we can return to in prayer and meditation over and over again. This is the place Christ meets us. We are what we eat. We become what we receive. Jesus is the bread of life and the cup of joy that quenches our hunger and thirst in a way that only love can. As followers of Christ, we have work to do in our families, our churches, our neighborhoods, and the world. We are Christ's hands and feet and the eyes for the world. God's work, our hands. As we begin each day, let us remember who we are and whose we are. Let us center ourselves in the word and prayer and beauty so that even during these challenging times, we can offer the living bread of heaven to all who hunger. We can choose to be present with those who are struggling with poverty, illness, or despair. There is healing at Christ's table, and there is love and justice and peace, and there is always an abundance to share. In our gospel story from a few weeks ago, Jesus fed the multitudes and says to his followers, "Gather up the fragments left over so that nothing may be lost." May we be both comforted and challenged by Jesus' ability to see the abundance that lives in the fragments of our lives. I will end with this blessing by Pastor Jan Richardson. Cup your hands together, and you will see the shape this blessing wants to take. Basket, bowl, vessel. It cannot help but hold itself open to welcome what comes. This blessing knows the secret of the fragments that find their way into its keeping, the wholeness that may hide in what has been left behind, the persistence of plenty where there seemed only lack. Look into the hollows of your hands and ask what wants to be gathered there. What abundance waits among the scraps that come to you? What feast will offer itself from the fragments that remain? Amen.